Are you still having fun in the Wonderlands? I am. I know some people complain about the DLC being very short, but they added more challenge tiers in the Chaos Chambers, and that is all I care about. I love the grinding and the min-maxing. In this video, I want to cover the build I utilized to get from challenge tier 20 to challenge tier 35. It was a bit of a struggle, but this build is fantastic fun, great mobbing damage, mediocre boss damage, horrible survivability, but we'll get into all that later. Let me know if you have a very fun and viable build. I'm about to try a new character completely, and would love some feedback if you have a recommendation. In this video, we're going to cover my Deadshot, which is the Graveborn mixed with Spellshot. We will cover the pros and cons of the setup. Then we will move on to the gear I used, the skill tree, as well as the stat points. All right, let's talk about this build. This is a very frosty boy. We've got our Graveborn and our Spellshot. We are using Ambihextrous because it's just so fun to use spells in this game. I absolutely love the Frost. Excellent crowd control, perfect mobbing character. You are going to just shred mobs, especially anything skeletons. Ooh, you just do so much bonus damage against gray health bars. It's amazing. But on the flip side of that, you might struggle a little bit with the red health bars, the regular health. You have a 25% damage nerf against those red health bars. It's kind of unfortunate, but I would argue the strength you have in controlling and just deleting mobs far outweighs the penalty you will face when you fight bosses with those red health bars. I can't emphasize enough how fun this setup is to play. Freezing everything, holding down the trigger, shooting this gun that just shoots spell damage. It's really, really fun. But one of the negatives I have to mention is that you are going to die so frequently. Maybe not die, but certainly go down to fight for your life. You'll notice that quite frequently throughout this video. And that's because we are running a shield, the Cursed Whit, aka the Whitney, the Trenton Whitney, which is going to buff our damage when our shield is broken. So we're always going to have a broken shield from the skill tree where we don't get any shield regen. We do great damage with this. You just are probably going to go down a lot. We have spec'd into some health that will kind of mitigate this, but not really. It's just sort of for the placebo effect. So we think we have a lot of health. We might not die, but we're going to go down a lot, but it's okay. We can perform just as well when we are down on our knees. On our knees. All right, let's hit up the gear, shall we? Our one and only gun that we do damage with is going to be the Queen's Call. This gun is really, really cool, and the reason this is so powerful is because we have completely spec'd into spell damage, and the Queen's Call shoots those frosty boys that fall from the sky that do spell damage. Those things are buffed by all of our spell damage modifiers, so it is incredibly fun and powerful to use. The other thing here that's important to mention is that do not, for the love of God, walk into those spell things falling from the sky. They will absolutely clap your ass and you will die. And it is not fun time. You can take note of how many times I go down to my own gun throughout this throughout this video. It is important to mention that with the Queen's Call, we want to make sure we get the variant that's X2 because it gives us a better chance of proccing that spell falling from the sky. And we also want that bonus that adds 10% crit damage. We are using Buffmeister. When we get to our spells, I'll talk about that, which makes us do critical damage. So we want any buff to critical damage we can get. On our secondary, which we only use in boss fights, it's our debuff weapon. Yep, I know, the introduction of more debuff mechanics. Twisted Delusion, or the Deluge, or the Deluge. This thing is pretty cool. It makes it so we don't have to run the class mod, which soaks enemies. When we soak enemies with this rocket launcher, they take a huge bonus meaty chunk of damage from ice and lightning attacks. And since everything we're doing is ice, this is very fun and very helpful for when you are fighting bosses. On our melee weapon, it sort of doesn't matter. You have the choice to use whatever you find enjoyable. I recommend the Goblin Pickaxe or the Mage Staff because they both have kind of unique and cool bonuses, but for our purposes, it's not important. What is important is you need to make sure you mix in your enchantments. Melee weapons do give you a nice place to put an enchantment. We need to have bonus damage on spellcast. We need to have bonus frost damage on spellcast. We need to have bonus elemental damage on spellcast, and we need to have bonus gun damage on spellcast. Those are the ones to look for. However you want to work them in is up to you. You have the weapon slot, the melee slot, as well as 2 spell slots, but those are going to be reserved for spell-specific enchantments. Moving along to our jewelry, we have 2 mood rings, and the stats on these are absolute garbage, but what's important here is the fact that they are mood rings. Why are mood rings cool? Is because they buff the stats by 100% when your shield's not full, and because our shield is always broken, these are always up, and it is a nice bonus, just a big spell damage buff. Definitely farm these. If you find awesome stats on them that buff your weapons or your reloads or anything like that, that's great. I can't, so I don't know. I'm stuck with these. But they are mood rings, and that's what matters. On our amulet, obviously, we could have something legendary. There are a bunch of buffs that would help you, but these stats are all so incredibly important. We want spell shot power, We want frost damage, obviously. We want our bonus to all damage, which is huge. And we want bonus to status effect damage. I know mine's blue. Don't judge me, it works, okay? You're gonna have to trust me. You want all those stats. When you have those stats, you might not feel so sad about not having a beautiful legendary amulet that buffs your companions or some other bullshit. For our shield, as previously mentioned, we are running the cursed the Trenton Whitney, and we want this because we want that broken shield bonus. I don't think the damage reduction works. I still get clapped. I still get my booty hole touched inappropriately and unconsensuously at all times. But the bonus damage output when we are close to enemies is very nice, and I thoroughly recommend it. On the shield, we do have bonus gun damage after spellcast. That's where I chose to mix it in. But remember our options. We have a lot of things to pick from. Mix and match wherever you can get the enchantments to roll. Look, for armor, we have a ton of options, okay? This one I found, and it's just so dope. Are you kidding me? Primordial gives huge bonus stats to both Spellshot and Graveborn, our two classes, and a big, huge chunk to spell damage. I've tried a lot of different ways of testing, and I find that this is one of the most... Okay, maybe there are better armors, but just look at me. Would you look at this? Look at that. It's so dope. This is the hardest and the dopest I've ever made a character, and I'm pretty proud of myself, so... Definitely tell me how cool I look to validate my self-esteem. All right, but seriously, this armor does work really well. The key point here is that we get 2 bonus points into Ascension. Ascension is our stacks that cap at 10, and each stack gives us 10% max health and 10% bonus spell damage. They last for quite some time, and you'll notice a humongous damage discrepancy when you have 10 stacks versus none. On our spell slots, we have 2 of them as we are running Ambihextrius. The first one is going to be the Legendary Glacial Cascade. This is your mobbing spell. It is absolutely fantastic. It does a huge amount of chip damage from the frost on the ground, and it has high alpha strike of doing big damage when it actually makes contact with an enemy. This is in combination with our Buffmeister, which... What have they done to my boy? They eviscerated it in the last patch, and it's, you know, nowhere near what it used to be. But I really, really only use it because it makes our attacks criticals, and it also is the only place I've been able to roll this freaking enchantment. This enchantment is so rare, it's incredible. I wish you the best of luck if you're going to gamble this enchantment, but it is so worth it. The additional projectile enchantment is so sick for this setup because it'll proc more of our spell damage ice things falling from the sky with this gun. Really, really, really powerful. If you don't get it on Buffmeister, just put it on anything. Who cares? It is so, so fun. You can hear the like, beep, 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 the Star Wars effect. It sounds great. It looks cool, and it's very, very functional. Really, really recommend getting this enchantment if you plan to play this setup. On our third and final spell, which will only be utilized in boss-type situations, it is the Triple Ice Spike. This is a purple spell. I have just really struggled finding more of these for whatever reason. I couldn't tell you why, but it's incredibly powerful against bosses because it has such a big critical damage modifier. It's a quick cast, right? So you don't have to hold it because I absolutely detest the hold to cast. It's just like, ugh, just... So this one's amazing. Does great damage against bosses and really, really easy to use. Just not that good against mobbing because you have to aim. Oh my, disgusting. So gross. But really, really powerful against bosses, and definitely would recommend the old switcheroo before you take on the final boss of the Chaos Chamber. I'm going to make this section very short and sweet. This is the skill tree. Look at it. Use your eyes. Just look at it, okay? Here's what's important. You want to go to the capstone of Graveborn because we want our kill skills to proc every time we use a spell, because we are firing off spells on cooldown. This makes it so that our Ascension stacks, the little heart icon there, which is buffed by our armor, is going to just be at 10 as frequently as possible. That is 100% bonus damage to your spells and 100% bonus to your max health when you have 10 stacks of Ascension. It is fantastic. We also are going to put a couple points into our companions simply to buff our damage based on the amount of companions we have. Very nice, kind of helpful, nothing crazy. Alternatively, you could spec into bonus dark magic damage, but that does not impact our legendary Ice Spike spell. It will impact the purple Ice Spike spell I mentioned, but it will not impact Buffmeister. So I spec'd out of that because it just doesn't work evenly for every spell across the board. Kind of sucks. And the bonus dark magic damage is really questionably applied to your companions, so I really wouldn't recommend it. Put some points into health so you're a little tankier and call it a day in that tree. In the Spellshot tree, we go down pretty far, but not that far. We need to make sure that we get our bonus to the thread count max cap stacks. This adds additional spell damage. We need glass cannon so we have more damage per spell. And we need to make sure we do not put a point into the shield regen on spellcast, as that is a bad time. Our stat points are very easy. Max out your critical damage because we are definitely using Buffmeister right now, and that makes everything criticals. We want to max out our spell cooldown, as it's just glorious to fire things off as quickly as possible. And then whatever you have left, pump into wisdom so you have more status effect damage. I hope this may take some of the suffering away from you as you grind your way through to the final endgame challenge tier 35. I'm really excited to switch builds. Played this one like far too much, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and if this helps one person, then it was totally worth it. Plus, I enjoy making these videos. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it so I can brag to my friends about how dope I am. And until next time, we out.